I just found out that my husband is the fifth prince of the current dynasty. His grievances have been cleared, and he will return to the capital immediately. The one who came to pick him up is his fiancée, the legitimate daughter of the duke's family. Xixi, only those who have registered the genealogy of the royal family can be considered my wife. But our marriage is not registered, so it doesn't count. Yanyan has waited for me for 2 years. She is willing to give you the status of a noble concubine, which is already a great concession. He wants me to pack up and follow him back to the capital in a few days. I don't want to go to the capital city. He impatiently said, "Where else can you go without me?" He doesn't know. Besides the capital city, I have other places to go. Father sent me a border pass. I can go beyond the border for trade. From then on, the sky is high and the sea is wide. And there is no relationship between us anymore. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. I carried the basket of fried pies home. Yanyan was just pushing the door open to leave. The once faded blue clothes have been replaced. Now he wears luxurious attire, a jade crown tying his hair, exuding an indescribable noble air. I just found out he is the fifth prince of the current dynasty. His grievances have been cleared, and the emperor has decreed for him to return to the capital. The one who came to pick him up is his fiancée in the capital city. I never knew. Yanyan stood behind him, elegant and dignified, tears brimming in her eyes. Yanyan stepped forward, his voice cool and detached. Xixi, only those who have registered the genealogy of the royal family can be considered my wife. But our marriage is not registered, so it doesn't count. Yanyan has waited for me for 2 years. She is willing to give you the status of a noble concubine, which is already a great concession. You pack up, and follow me back to the capital in a few days. My gaze fell on their 10 fingers intertwined. Afraid of aggrieving Yanyan, he couldn't wait to show it off in front of people. His deep affection and loyalty to Yanyan, the mutual love and understanding. Such tender love and affection, he never had for me. He turned his head, the softness in his eyes faded. And when he looked at me, his eyes were icy cold, like the ice that refuses to melt in early spring. I was silent for a long time, then asked, "Aren't we married?" His eyes flickered, his lips moved slightly, and after a while, he spat out 2 words. "It doesn't count." I nodded slowly, then asked, "Can I not go to the capital city?" He was stunned, frowned slightly, a bit impatient, and said, "Don't make a fuss. You are a merchant's daughter. Being a noble concubine to a prince is already my biggest concession. Where else can you go without me?" I lifted my head and softly said, "All right." Then turned around and started to busy myself. This month is the Ghost Festival, not many people are out. The fried pies are hard to sell, there are many left. I need to store them well, they can still be sold tomorrow. I lowered my head and started to pack up the basket. No one saw the face I was about to cry. Yanyan casually said, "Don't bother packing, these fried pies aren't anything good, you won't need to eat them in the future." I ignored him and continued to pack. Underneath the box was the letter I received from the post office today. It was from Father. He has opened up the trade route between Country L and the western regions, inviting me to join him in trade. Along with the letter, there was a border pass. I do have a place to go. I can go beyond the border for trade. And from then on, the sky is high and the sea is wide, and we can part ways happily. 2 years ago, I followed a caravan to the southwest area to trade salt. And on the road, I encountered Yanyan. The refugees had no homes or land, and he was mixed in with a group of them, limping along the road. Suddenly, he twisted his foot and fell into a ditch. No one cared. In the ditch, he was covered in knife wounds, his clothes tattered. He grabbed my sleeve, his eyes hopeful, "Miss, save me." After washing his face, I was quite surprised. Yanyan turned out to be a handsome gentleman. Even though I had traveled far and wide with my father for many years, I had never seen someone as handsome as him. I was stunned for a moment, my face instantly a bit red. Yanyan told me he was from the capital, a scholar, whose family was implicated in a rebellious poetry case, leading to the confiscation of their property and his becoming a refugee. "Please, miss, save me. I will repay you with my life." For him, I stayed in the city's, rented a courtyard, and took care of him diligently. The neighbors said he was aloof and proud, not necessarily grateful to me. I just smiled. One day, I went out to shop and casually brought him a folding fan. He slowly unfolded it, his eyes flashing, and asked gently, "Miss, you treat me so well, I don't know how to repay you." I jokingly said, "Why don't you marry me then?" He said, "All right." Before the spring festival, he shamelessly went to the market to write couplets, earning a small amount of money, and made me a copper hairpin, the design of which he drew himself. He said he had nothing valuable to offer as a betrothal gift. Only the hairpin, to hold my long hair. I felt like I had found a treasure. I wrote a letter to my father, telling him I had found my ideal husband, and would no longer travel with the caravan. From then on, I had a home and a husband. Half a month ago, a young lady arrived in town, the legitimate daughter of the Duke's mansion from the capital. She traveled thousands of miles south to recuperate. As a new topic in town, I couldn't help but mention it at the dinner table. At that time, Xiaoyun's expression was indifferent, not joining the conversation, saying, "Don't speak while eating, don't talk while sleeping." He was always sparing with words towards me. But one evening, when I returned home, under the shade of the willows, I saw that young lady sobbing with tears. Xiaoyun held her in his arms. A rush of blood surged to my head, and what was I thinking at that moment? I should have been like the fruit seller next door, knowing my husband was unfaithful, grabbing a fire stick and confronting him. But two women fighting would be too ugly. I calmed down. Perhaps I misunderstood? If it wasn't a misunderstanding, I also thought, even though Xiaoyun was extraordinarily talented, he was just a refugee, and that lady was a noblewoman. Even if there was some flirtation and ambiguity between them, they definitely couldn't be together. That's right, that's how it is. Miss Su was confined to her boudoir, and I never saw Xiaoyun meet her again. Until one day, it was my birthday, and I deliberately closed the stall early to celebrate at home. The night before, I found a new hairpin under the pillow. I returned home full of joy. Xiaoyun, however, gave me a cotton handkerchief, his expression still indifferent. "You make fried pies, your hands easily get greasy, this will come in handy. I'm short of money, and don't have anything else to give." And the hairpin I longed for appeared in Miss Sue's hair the next day. She came to buy fried pies. "Delicate and graceful," she said, "I really envy you." Others who heard it felt it was nonsensical. But at that moment, I understood. A bitter and sour taste surged up. She left with red eyes. At night, Xiaoyun returned with red eyes. He was terribly drunk, and when I went to support him, he shook his sleeve and pushed me away. I fell to the ground. Watching him, he staggered, fumbling for a folding fan in the trunk. He treated the fan as if it were me, venting all his grievances fueled by alcohol. "Xixi, you shamelessly demanded repayment for saving me, forcing me to marry you. If it weren't for you, I would rather have died in the ditch than become this heartless, ungrateful hypocrite." The always aloof Xiaoyun had tears in his eyes. "I have wronged her, I have hurt her. She shouldn't have waited for me." His tone was full of resentment. It turned out, Miss Su was his fiancée, who had been waiting bitterly in the capital for 2 years. He had feelings, she had love. Yet, I was the unexpected wife who forcibly tore them apart. He took the folding fan, suddenly exerting force, and with a rip, the fan split. Once. Twice. The night was very quiet, the sound of the silk paper tearing was incredibly clear. Something in my heart also shattered. I lost my voice, choking back tears, not daring to make a sound. Then, Xiaoyun sat alone in the courtyard, staring at the round moon in a daze, muttering Yanyan, before finally passing out, sleeping deeply. I stood dumbfounded under the eaves, my eyes unable to hold back more tears, rolling down my cheeks. The mountain wind was very cold, chilling me to the bone. Xiaoyun remembered nothing after being drunk. But he saw the fan torn to shreds on the ground. Then, as if nothing had happened, he quietly picked it up and put it back in the trunk. He didn't ask me anything. I didn't mention anything either. But we both knew something had changed. Half a month later, a group of solemn guards appeared, bustling and surrounding my yard so tightly that not even water could pass through. They were there to welcome the fifth prince back to the capital. At the front of the crowd was Yanyan, her eyes glistening with tears. Yesterday, they could only meet secretly, fearing that Yanyan would gain a bad reputation. Today, they could finally stand openly in front of others. This was because Yanyan and Xiaoyuni were still engaged. And she was the future fifth princess consort. And I was just a countryside wife without a formal ceremony or a marriage certificate. After Xiaoyuni spoke, he turned and left, directing the guards to set up 2 tents in the yard. One was his, and the other was Yanyan's. He said he would give me a few days to pack, and then we would return to the capital together. Yanyan would not return to her family's manor but would stay here and wait for me. From that day on, Xiaoyuni never entered my room again. This was quite good. He wouldn't know that I was writing a letter to my father. In 5 days, I would leave the city, and in just half a month, I would reach the border to meet him. I put down the pen and tucked the letter into my sleeve. At this moment, Xiaoyuni entered with a stern face. Yanyan timidly followed him, her face somewhat pale. Xiaoyuni was very angry and coldly questioned. "Didn't I tell you not to make fried pies anymore? Do you know how greasy that smell is? Yanyan feels nauseous just smelling it." Behind me was the kitchen, warm with the stove still on. Simmering with meat filling, the aroma wafting for miles. When I first saved him, the first meal was fried pie. And his eyes lit up, saying it was the best delicacy he had ever tasted. He praised my skills, saying I was good at making money and managing the household. He said he would never tire of it in his lifetime. I paused for a moment. And Yanyan's face turned white, covering her mouth with a handkerchief, retching repeatedly. Xiaoyuni felt distressed and became even angrier. He ordered me, "Put out the stove quickly." Cold and resolute. I refused. I wanted to sell fried pies for a few more days to save a little more travel money. The border was very far away. Expressionless, I said firmly. "This is my house. If she doesn't move in, she won't smell it, will she?" Yanyan furrowed her delicate brows, revealing slightly reddened eyes, gently tugging at his sleeve. "Yuni, don't make things difficult for Miss Shin. It's my fault. Although I've been in the city for a while, my body is weak. And I probably can't acclimate. I should go back to the manor and wait for you." Xiaoyuni's face grew even darker. "She has no right to drive you away. Can't I protect you from such a small thing?" Yanyan's eyes moved, and she shyly lowered her head, blushing at his implicit protection. I clenched the letter in my sleeve. In the heat of July, I felt a chill all over. She was gentle and kind. I was the aggressive one, driving away the rightful wife. Forget it. It's only a few days. A little less silver doesn't matter. At worst, I'll sell this house and never return to the city. I didn't say anything, which was as good as agreeing, and then I stepped over the threshold. "Where are you going?" As I was about to pass by, Xiaoyuni stopped me. I looked up and said calmly, "I'm going to send a letter to my father. Is that not allowed?" He let go of my hand. He wasn't interested in the contents of my letter. He thought I was going to tell my father that I was a prince's concubine, enjoying wealth and glory. The letter was sent, smoothly. When I returned, the aroma of fried pies had long dissipated. The chickens and ducks in the backyard had been given a large basket of fried pies and were happily eating. Meanwhile, in the stove, Yanyan's medicinal meal was simmering. I was packing my belongings alone. Cotton clothes, cloaks, fur boots, all sorts of things were scattered around. Just as I picked up a blue robe, caught in a dilemma, Xiaoyuni walked in. He frowned. "The prince's residence has everything, no need to bring these shabby things." I pressed my lips together and asked, "Not even this?" Xiaoyuni glanced at the clothes in my hand, his expression indifferent. He didn't remember. During his exile, Xiaoyuni developed a chronic illness, making him particularly sensitive to cold. Last winter, the city was so cold that water froze instantly. And even wearing cotton clothes felt chilly. I trudged through the snow up the mountain and got 2 wolf pelts from a hunter. By the time I descended, my legs were almost numb from the cold. Then I stayed up several nights to make him a set of winter clothes. I even embroidered 2 clusters of green bamboo on the cuffs. I originally didn't know how to embroider, but learned embroidery for him. Xiaoyun's lips moved slightly, but his face showed nothing but disdain. I smiled and set the clothes aside. At that moment, Yanyan walked over, her voice like a golden oriole. Yuni, look, these are silks from the south. Help me choose which color looks best. This fabric is light and soft, quite rare. Yanyan walked gracefully. Her complexion rosy now that she no longer had to smell the scent of fried pies. Standing beside Xiaoyun like a delicate flower. She noticed my expression and fell silent. She timidly asked, Yuni, did I come at a bad time? Then, she glanced at the men's clothes spread on the table and explained. Miss Shin may not know, but the prince's attire has specific styles. Not just any clothes can be worn casually. These, if worn outside, might cause ridicule and embarrass Yuni. I glanced out the window. The green willows in the setting sun made them look like a perfect couple, both appearing noble and proud. Xiaoyun said, you're from the countryside, unfamiliar with palace rules. In the future, let Yanyan teach you these. I smiled bitterly and replied softly, I understand. Yanyan gave me a gentle and considerate smile. Yuni entrusted this to me, I'll definitely handle it well. Xiaoyun's voice was full of affection, you're always so sweet. After they left, I took out all of Xiaoyun's clothes, personal items, and stationery, organized them, and packed them into boxes. He didn't want them, so be it, I could sell them for some travel expenses. Please, can you ask if the 5th prince still wants these things? I unfolded the items from the cloth bundle one by one. Xiaoyun was a prince, with many rules, even meeting him now required prior notification. The guard lazily glanced at the items, entered Xiaoyun's tent, and came out in less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. He said, the 5th prince said he doesn't want the items, Miss Shin can dispose of them as she pleases. I nodded slightly. He didn't even look. Without hesitation, I pulled the donkey cart and sold everything to the pawn shop within half a day. Then, I bought new things, large boxes and small ones. Returning home, I was loaded with goods. All winter clothes, furs, saddles. But no one was interested in checking them. The guards and maids kept their eyes straight. Only as I walked away, disdainful voices reached me intermittently. Opportunities to rise to wealth are rare, suddenly becoming rich, who can resist buying things? Poor Miss Sue, having to share a husband with such a woman in the future. I couldn't help but quicken my pace, leaving those words far behind. Now, all I need is a good horse. The lady next door has always wanted my fried pies recipe. I sold it for 2 taels and then took my little donkey to the horse market. The horse market was bustling. Most of the people picking horses were merchants transporting goods. Who knew which horses had good stamina and endurance? I walked around and finally set my eyes on an unremarkable horse and started bargaining. The old man stroked his graying beard. Miss, you have a good eye, but this silver is not enough. How about looking at another horse? The old man pointed to a white horse not far away. But someone had already taken a liking to it. Yanyan's delicate voice was particularly clear in the noisy horse market. Yuni, this horse is beautiful, do you think it's good? Xiaoyun sat on another horse, leaned down with a smile, his face full of affection. As long as you like it, it's fine. Yanyan suddenly looked over. Miss Shin? Xiaoyun turned his horse and saw me. He looked down from above, frowned, and asked, what are you doing here? I tugged at the rope in my hand and spoke the truth. Selling the donkey. The donkey's stamina is poor and it can't travel far. Xiaoyun didn't doubt me. Suddenly, his gaze fell on my hairpin, and he squinted slightly, momentarily dazed. His voice tightened, where's your hairpin? I instinctively touched my hair. Women love beauty, and over the years, I've bought quite a few accessories. But the copper hairpin he gave me, regardless of the seasons, I always wore it at my temple. I kept it polished and shiny, without a speck of rust. I looked up and said calmly, oh, didn't your guard ask you something? They're all cheap trinkets. Wearing them out would be beneath my status, so I didn't wear them. Upon hearing this, Xiaoyun's expression turned a bit displeased. A trace of annoyance flashed in his eyes, with a hint of gritting his teeth. Cheap? Yanyan dismounted and approached me in one step. That was my. Suddenly, Yanyan exclaimed, Yuni. The horse under her was startled and she was about to fall. Yanyan instantly turned back, grabbed the reins, and steadied the horse. Then he gently helped her off the horse. Yanyan was still shaken, her small face showing fear. Yuni, this horse doesn't seem to like being close to people, I'm a bit scared. Let's go to another place and have a look. Whatever he wanted to say to me was forgotten. The annoyance on Yanyan's face faded, his eyes and heart only for Yanyan, ambiguously saying to me, forget it, if you sold that hairpin, then you sold it. When we return to the capital, I'll make you a gold hairpin. Yanyan turned his head, wanting to say something else, but I had already turned away. Yanyan tugged at his sleeve. Yuni, over there, that horse looks nice. Didn't you say you would teach me to ride? I've been waiting for you for 2 years, you must teach me these days. Yanyan finally came back to his senses and withdrew his gaze. After they walked away, I turned to the old man. Is the silver, along with my donkey, enough to buy that horse? The owner looked at me, then at the donkey, nodded, and said it was enough. They were buying horses to stroll to the capital. I was buying a horse to go to the border. 2 days before departing for the capital, the young maidservant watching me pack couldn't help but mutter. Miss, you sold a batch of old things and bought a batch of new ones. But I see no difference from before. The style and fabric are all shabby. The fifth prince probably wouldn't like them. She spoke bluntly, without any intention of belittling me. I lowered my eyes and remained silent, focusing on my packing. Shabbiness didn't matter. These were items useful for traders. In just one more day, I could leave. While packing, a guard serving Yanyan came to inform me that Yanyan had sent an old nanny to teach me etiquette before heading to the capital. To avoid offending the nobles then. I had seen this old nanny before. She was Yanyan's wet nurse. She had a kind and benevolent face, but only in front of others. In front of me, she exuded authority without anger, straightened her back, critiqued me, and then listed a bunch of rules for me to learn. I broke bowl after bowl balanced on my head. It finally dawned on the old nanny that I had no intention of learning. Her patience and scant respect vanished, and she glared at me, scolding. I am an acquaintance of the fifth prince's mother, consortly. If she were to teach you these rules, she wouldn't be as lenient as I am. I have only ever taught noble ladies, never a country bumpkin. You are the fifth prince's concubine, whatever dissatisfaction you have, you must endure. Endure? I endured Yanyan's coldness for 2 years, endured being demoted from wife to concubine. I have a choice. Why should I endure? I replied calmly, I haven't entered the estate yet, so I'm not considered his concubine. I can learn these rules later. Whether I'm around then is uncertain. I left the old nanny speechless and furious. Within half a day, everyone in my small courtyard knew I was rebellious, defying the elders of the duke's estate. I remained unmoved. Until Yanyan stormed in to find me. His face was dark, and he barked. Xixi, can you be reasonable and not cause trouble for me? I raised my neck, not quite understanding his meaning, my face a picture of confusion. These past few days, I had done everything he asked without defiance. What more was he dissatisfied with? Yanyan peeked out from behind him, her eyes like apricot blossoms in early rain, looking aggrieved. Miss Shin, Nanny Wine is my wet nurse and has served in the duke's estate for many years. She will also teach me etiquette. I just want you to make a good impression in front of the consortly. I'm not trying to make things difficult for you. Yanyan approached gently, like a good sister, trying to take my hand. But I instinctively avoided her. Her face showed hurt, and tears fell just like that. Yanyan's anger flared up instantly, and he said sternly, "Someone, take Miss Su back." He coaxed Yanyan away with gentle words. Once no one else was around, Yanyan suddenly stepped forward, seized my wrist, and angrily asked, "What did you mean by that?" "What? What do you mean by saying you won't be there? If you don't follow me, where else can you go?" "We have." He stopped himself mid-sentence. He was certain I had nowhere else to go and could only follow him. I lied easily, those were words spoken in anger. He seemed to relax a bit, but still held my hand tightly, causing me pain. His voice was extremely cold, extremely disappointed. Xixi, you come from a lowly background and don't even have the qualifications to be my concubine. I managed to secure the status of a noble concubine for you. After saying so many good things to my mother and at the Duke's estate. Do you know how much I've protected you? I forced a stiff smile, my heart aching. He never asked me if I wanted to be this noble concubine. Xixi released me, adjusted his sleeves, and his eyes showed no warmth. Behave yourself. After we return to the capital and I marry Yanyan, I will welcome you into the estate. Don't cause trouble, or you won't even have the status of a noble concubine. And will only be a chambermaid. I lowered my eyes, my fingertips turning white from gripping too hard. Suppressing the bitterness in my mouth, and replied hoarsely, understood. On the last day before leaving the town, I took the house deed to the trading firm. I directly stated my intention, how much can this house sell for? The shopkeeper of the firm knew I was the lady selling fried pies in the East Market. And also knew Xixi was the fifth prince. He greeted me with a smile, trying to engage in small talk. I lowered my head and simply said, regardless of the price, sell it immediately. You can take possession of the house the day after tomorrow. After this, I won't be coming back. The shopkeeper nodded repeatedly and even congratulated me. I only wanted a quick transaction. Not haggling over the price, and for the first time, I made a loss in business. I took the silver and left. In July, the pomegranates were as red as fire, blooming in clusters by the river. In the small pavilion, a couple sat surrounded by the fragrance of tea wafting from the stove. Yanyan held a few freshly picked pomegranate flowers. Xixi was writing poetry on a silk fan, which Yanyan took and sniffed delicately. The hairpin on her temple jingled softly. Xixi sat across from her, raising his hand to brush away the fallen petals from her shoulder. It was a warmth and affection he never showed me. Previously, I had suggested several times to go out and enjoy the flowers. He always said indifferently that he didn't like it. Back then, I naively thought he truly didn't like flowers. But now it seems, it wasn't the flowers he disliked. It was the person accompanying him to enjoy them. I was just a person without education, appreciating flowers with me was like playing music to a cow. I couldn't compare to the well-read Yanyan. These days, I rarely saw Xixi. They listened to the wind, watched the willows, and rode horses under the moon. I stood silently behind a tree, my eyes sore. I lowered my head and swallowed my tears. Xixi paused with the cup in his hand and glanced in my direction. I quickly diverted my gaze, pretending I hadn't seen anything. Among the throngs of tourists, I was just another face, unnoticed. Yuni? Yanyan called him sweetly. Xixi also pretended not to see me. The day of departure was a beautiful day. It coincidentally coincided with the temple fair. It was bustling. But the bustle had nothing to do with me. I was alone with a young maid, leisurely moving things onto the carriage. Box by box, item by item, filling the carriage to the point where there was barely any room to sit. The young maid complained softly that I brought too many useless things. And she was suffering with me. In the scorching heat of July, she didn't want to be out in the sun. You can go back to Miss Sue's side. I'm not used to being served. After sending the maid away, Xixi came over. He stood by the carriage, glanced at my overly packed carriage, and frowned, asking coldly, "Did you do this on purpose?" I pursed my lips and didn't respond. Because I knew he had more to say. Don't forget, you're just a concubine. You can't ride with me and Yanyan. Don't make a fuss, it's the rule. He added. I shook my head, indicating I wouldn't make a fuss. I'll ride with the coachman. I'm a merchant's daughter, I'm used to it. He headed north to the capital. I headed west to the border. We were never on the same path. Xiaoyuni's expression was as cold as ice, and he left with a flick of his sleeve, "Suit yourself." Su Yanyan finally emerged after much calling, surrounded like the moon among stars. Maids and guards gathered around her, carefully helping her onto the carriage. My side was desolate, with even the only maid sent away. The coachman hesitated before speaking, "Madam." Mississippi. I lifted my skirt and jumped onto the carriage, sitting beside the coachman, and said softly, "Take it slow. No hurry." The wheels rolled slowly towards the city gate. My carriage was heavy, moving especially slowly. In my sight, Xiaoyun's carriage gradually distanced itself from mine. At first, he had the coachman stop to wait for me, several times sending people to urge me to hurry and not fall behind. The coachman patted his chest. "There's only one official road to the capital, we won't get lost." Yanyan lifted the curtain, revealing a cheerful face, and said, "Yuni, let's go faster. Maybe we can catch the capital's flower appreciation festival." Hearing this, Xiaoyuni couldn't resist urging the horse to go faster. The city gate was bustling with traffic. Carriages, donkey carts, pedestrians, and porters. It took quite a while for the carriage to squeeze through. Xiaoyuni didn't notice that none of the carriages trailing on the official road were mine. Watching as Xiaoyuni's carriage grew farther away, the coachman whipped the horse. "Miss, hold on tight." But I pulled the reins, took out a piece of silver from my bosom. "Thank you for your hard work. I'll continue on my own." The coachman was hired, paid for his work, and didn't ask any questions. Taking the silver and jumping off the carriage, I turned the carriage around and headed west. On the official road leading to Changyang Pass, my father and a group of workers had been waiting for quite some time. Under the scorching sun, they were all a bit restless. My father remained calm. "Here," I responded with a nod. Then, tears started flowing uncontrollably. He usually was quite talkative, but at this moment, he seemed somewhat silent. Normally, he would scold me, but the past cannot be changed, and saying more is pointless. My father has always been broad-minded, never looking back, only asking about the future. "Daughter, let's go." Except for the discomfort in the first 2 days after setting off, I quickly adapted. We traveled westward. The great river surged, and the mountains stood tall, and finally, we smoothly passed through Changyang Pass. Out of the border, there are no old friends. My father excitedly said that now the two countries are on good terms. They've opened trade markets, and there are many good things beyond the pass. This is our chance to make a fortune. Beyond the pass, there is the lonely smoke of the desert, the setting sun over the long river. I have seen the green-eyed people of the western regions. And the melons growing in the Gobi are sweet to the point of being overwhelming. Standing on the sand dunes, I felt as small as a grain of sand. My father came over, exhaled a puff of smoke, and asked, "Are you thinking of that person?" I shook my head. I am very grateful that I didn't return to the capital with Xiaoyuni. There are only 4 walls, and every day I would be anxious, trying to figure out if he loves me or not. But now, here, the world is vast. The 4 seas are boundless. My little worries have long been tucked away in a small corner. I curved my lips into a smile and said, "Father, if we make a lot of money on this trip, can you find me a stepmother?" My father coughed, "Dare to joke with your old man." But my father said that buying me a husband is something he could consider. I neither agreed nor disagreed. The first day of departure from the capital. The night was lively with lights. Xiaoyuni stood in front of the inn, helping Yanyan down from the carriage. After that, he hesitated for a moment but still turned to the carriage behind. These days, he was cold towards Xixi, and his words were somewhat harsh. She is a person with delicate thoughts, and now she must be annoyed with him. He clearly didn't want it to be like this. But Yanyan was here, she is his fiancée, and he had to consider her. "Xixi, we've arrived at the inn, let's make do here for the night." Xiaoyuni knocked on the wooden board of the carriage. A man came down. Xiaoyuni suddenly realized that the coachman wasn't the one he hired. And the carriage wasn't Xixi's carriage. Xiaoyuni stared at the tracks on the ground, feeling a bit panicked. Carriages passed one after another. He stood at the door, watching them go by, one by one. But none of them were Xix's carriage. His heart grew increasingly anxious. I told her not to bring so many things, but she insisted. I said I would buy them for her in the capital. It shouldn't have slowed down the journey. Xiaoyuni started pacing in place. These words seemed like he was talking to himself, yet also like he was complaining to the maid beside him. The maid timidly kept her head down, not daring to speak. Yanyan came out of the inn, looking a bit displeased. She glanced at the old nanny beside her. Nanny Wang stepped forward slowly. Your Highness, this old servant knows you are worried about Miss Shin. But she is only a concubine, waiting for her at the door is improper. If word gets back, it might be used against you. Forgive this old servant for speaking out of turn, but your foundation is unstable now. You should focus on the bigger picture. Yanyan kindly asked, should we send someone to look for her? Xia Yuni took a breath. His expression softened. He coldly left a sentence. She is only a concubine, can't let her act too arrogantly. Otherwise, if she rides over you in the future, that would be my fault. Yanyan curved her lips into a smile. The next day on the road, intentionally or unintentionally, Xia Yuni slowed down the pace. At night, camping by the roadside, Xia Yuni turned his head and craned his neck. It was silent, the starlight faint. He couldn't wait for her. Xia Yuni's expression gradually cooled, finally he slowly spoke. Someone, go find her. Each word seemed squeezed out through clenched teeth. Xia Yuni's order was to search along the official road and small paths. All the way back to that town, riding swiftly. The guards were efficient, and within a day, they returned to report. Miss Shin has left. Left? What does it mean? Just one short word, but they hit Xia Yuni like a punch, leaving him breathless. He was instantly thrown into a panic, his body swaying, almost unable to stand. What trick is she playing now? He murmured to himself. Staring at the guard, he gripped the hilt of his sword tightly, his fingers aching from the force. The guard, trembling, handed him a letter. That was the letter I left for the coachman. If someone came looking, he was to deliver the letter. If not, he could burn it or throw it away, it didn't matter. Xia Yuni took the letter with trembling hands. He scanned it quickly. There were water stains on the letter, smudging the ink in places. Making it hard to read, but it didn't affect the message. Because I didn't write much, starting with a line of poetry. Pure as the snow on the mountain, bright like the moon among the clouds. I heard you have divided feelings, so I came to sever ties. I wasn't going to use flowery language. My name is not on the genealogy of your royal family. Since we aren't truly husband and wife, I won't go to the capital with you. If I had known back then that you had a fiancé, I would never have gotten involved with you. From now on, the mountains are high and the rivers are long. Whether marry or not, and we have nothing to do with each other. A thin letter with only a few words. Xia Yuni read it word by word. His heart felt suddenly empty. A small twig seemed to poke at his heart, causing a fine, piercing pain. He couldn't believe it, snatching the reins from the guard and mounting his horse. Yanyan stumbled out of the carriage, chasing after him, blocking the horse's path. Yuni, we can't delay any longer, the decree to enfeoff you as a prince awaits in the capital. And also, the decree for our official marriage. She clutched a piece of Xia Yuni's clothing. Yanyan's eyes were filled with tears. Yuni, isn't it good that she left? Miss Shin wants to fulfill our wishes. Her eyes were red. Watching as the piece of clothing slipped bit by bit from her grasp. The white horse galloped away. Yanyan took a few steps and fell hard. Yuni. Her heart was breaking. Yuni, don't leave me. But Xia Yuni couldn't hear anything. A group of guards also mounted their horses, galloping in pursuit. Xia Yuni raced through the night. His hairpin came loose, his clothes were snagged and torn by branches, but he didn't care. He chased for 2 miles, only to be stopped by the river. The river was dangerous, and at night, crossing the bridge was forbidden. The river roared, waves crashing furiously. He looked at the long road ahead, gripping the reins until it hurt. Xixi. Xixi was a merchant's daughter, with no fixed abode, traveling everywhere. She was gone, and across the vast lands, he had no idea where to start looking. Suddenly, it began to rain, pattering down. Falling on his face. Mixing with his tears, sliding down together. That year, in the light rain among apricot blossoms, she saved him from the ditch, pulling him out of the mud. That year, after the rain, the crabapple blossoms bloomed, and they married in a simple country courtyard. He made a vow, through life and death, to be with her. This year, they separated. Some vows of life and death can break one's heart even while alive. The guards caught up. Yanyan also caught up, crying. The rain fell harder. It was noisy, yet quiet. He had thought that marrying Xixi back then was just a repayment for saving his life. A debt he couldn't ignore. He even felt humiliated. Coldness and distance were the prices she had to pay. He thought that giving her the position of a noble concubine was the greatest favor under heaven. And she should be grateful. Only this way could he make up for his neglect of Yanyan. He lied to himself, saying he didn't love Xixi. But she left. And he realized she took his heart with her. I traveled with my father to the western regions, to Lulan, and to many other places. We traded silk and spices from the central plains. And brought back cattle, sheep, furs, and jade. The borderlands were prosperous, and my father's trade business grew larger, becoming the biggest merchant at the border. This year, my father took on a major business deal as an imperial merchant, providing furs and western region jewels to the royal family. My father didn't trust the staff to handle it, so he brought me along to personally escort the goods. This was my first time coming to the capital city. The bustling city was dazzling to the eyes. The ones who received us at the guest house were the imperial merchants. And overseeing the imperial merchants was the fifth prince, Xixi. He is now Prince E. This was the first time we met in 3 years. He stood in front of the merchant house, tall and elegant, amidst the sparse rain of apricot blossoms, still holding a sense of pride and nobility. Though his cheekbones were more prominent, and his figure had become much thinner. His lips moved slightly, his eyes shining. Xixi, I've been looking for you for a long time. His voice was somewhat hoarse. There was also a hint of longing. But at this moment, seeing him, I no longer felt the same heart-fluttering hesitation and uncertainty as I did back then. I was very calm. I greeted him formally, Your Highness. Xixini's expression faltered, his eyes showing hurt. You don't have to be like this. He looked at me, his eyes full of deep affection. I didn't marry Yanyan. She's just a concubine. The position of my main wife has always been reserved for you. Xixi, will you come home with me? He explained that back then, he was in decline, the least powerful and influential among the princes. Consortly was not his biological mother, and he could only rely on Duke Su's power to establish himself in the court. His eyelashes were slightly wet. Xixi, you've always been in my heart. I couldn't see clearly before and wronged you. I slightly turned my head, looking at the misty blue sky. I replied with the original words. We have no matchmaker, no betrothal, not listed in the royal family jade registry. Not husband and wife, that's what you said. I am just a merchant's daughter, at most can only be a concubine, that's what you said too. These words, I've kept in my heart for many years. Every time I think of them, I feel resentment. But as time passed, the grievances faded away. I felt neither sadness nor joy. Xixi, back then I said you should marry me, it was just a joke. Actually, at that time, as long as you said you had a fiancé, I wouldn't have forced you. Now, it's just a matter of turning back from the wrong path. Xixini's face turned pale, as if something shattered in his eyes. His fingertips trembled, he staggered back a step, his gaze was blank, like the west wind, desolate. He said, I don't believe it. You came to the capital, you still have me in your heart. I felt a bit cold, wrapped my fox fur cloak tighter, and calmly said, Businessmen prioritize profit, business can be done anywhere. If it's about business, I can discuss business with you. But since you're an official of the court, it's better not to meet privately too often. After speaking, I turned and went back to the guest house. Closed the door. Picked up the ledger at home and started looking at it. No matter what was happening outside, nothing was more important than my ledger. The furs entering the palace this time were extremely precious. The noble consort in the palace liked them, and specifically instructed the imperial merchants to have me bring the goods into the palace. In the imperial garden, all the consorts and noblewomen were present. Xixini's adoptive mother, Consort Li, was also there. Consort Li's face was calm, only giving me a light glance, without any waves of emotion. Perhaps after years of palace struggles, all her edges had been smoothed. Yanyan accompanied consortly. She was just a concubine, and in this setting, she wasn't qualified to sit with consortly, but stood aside, ready to serve her mother-in-law at any moment. She lowered her eyes, looking desolate. Like a bright and delicate famous flower, covered with a layer of gray, and dull. I received various strange looks. When Xixi was exiled to the city he married a wife. But she didn't return to the capital with him, which wasn't a secret. Yanyan, who was supposed to be the main wife, became a concubine because of me. Some said she was petty and narrow-minded, unable to tolerate a concubine. Some said I was a commoner dreaming of the position of a prince's wife. Others said Xixi was either deeply affectionate or fickle. They were all scrutinizing me. Yet, they tacitly avoided mentioning past events. I ignored these probing gazes, walked straight to the consorts, and began to talk about the items I brought. Their origin, texture, unique features. In the midst of my eloquent speech, I also talked about the scenery of the western regions. The noble consort liked to hear stories from the outside world. And came over, interrupting my words, asking, "Tell me, I've heard Lulan has singing sands, have you seen them? What are they really like? Do the sands really sing? How can a woman like you travel so far? Where else have you been?" The noble consort specifically had someone offer me a seat. I politely declined. There were too many stories from beyond the borders. I smiled and began to tell. The sands don't actually sing, it's just that the desert has many strange rocks. And when the wind blows, the wind and sand pass through the rocks, making sounds, different in each season. The noble consort listened intently. The consorts in the palace, confined within the palace walls for a lifetime, were particularly interested in hearing about the outside world. Even the always indifferent consortly came over, listening closely. But Yanyan remained standing properly to the side, completely neglected. Until the palace servants reminded everyone that the palace gates were about to close. People began to disperse. From beginning to end, consortly never made things difficult for me. Only when leaving did she call me aside and calmly said, "You are luckier than me, you chose the right path." I left the palace at the same time as Yanyan. She blocked my path, her resentment palpable. "Why is it that you say a few words and can make consortly happy? No matter what I do, she's never pleased." I smiled helplessly and said, "I'm a businesswoman, always greeting people with a smile. I say what the customer likes to hear, that's all. No other meaning." She bit her cheek, her eyes rimmed with red, and said resentfully, "You clearly left, so why did you come back to stir up trouble with Xixi? It's all your fault. I am supposed to be his wife." Yanyan was relentless, venting her grievances with a heart full of resentment. She blamed me for using favors to coerce Xixi into marrying me back then, turning me into a stumbling block and a thorn between them. She resented me even more for leaving, taking his heart with me. Leaving her in a state of unrequited love and longing. How Xixi used to neglect me is how he neglects her now. Yanyan, with tearful eyes, said, "I just love him, is that wrong?" I folded my sleeves and said helplessly, "You're blaming the wrong person. Your engagement was never broken. It was he who concealed it, deceiving both me and you." Yanyan stopped crying, stunned in place. "He used me to find a place to settle down. Later, he used you to establish himself in the capital." I lowered my eyes, I saw it clearly, that's why I left. In Yanyan's bewildered gaze, I boarded the carriage. Xixi came to see me several times. I had the maid turn him away. The maid, not daring to offend the prince, still accepted a bouquet of plum blossoms, placing it on my desk, and said timidly, "Princey said the plum blossoms in the suburbs are in full bloom, inviting you to see them. He'll wait there until he see you." I glanced at it. My heart was unmoved. That day, Xixi stood alone in the wind, waiting for a long time. The wind blew the flowers, blurring his eyes, turning them red. From dawn till dusk, he waited. He wouldn't see me. The business in the capital was successful, earning a large sum of silver. Before leaving the capital, I was busy purchasing various goods that could be sold for a good price beyond the borders. Returning from outside, I collapsed into a chair. At that moment, the maid brought another exquisite box, lowered her head, and smiled awkwardly. "Miss, this is from Prince E." I dared not refuse, so I accepted it. I opened the box. Expecting something valuable, it was just a copper hairpin. The style was the same as the one he gave me before. Now, this hairpin was solemnly placed in a lacquered box. Yanyan sent me many things, all of which I had returned. This hairpin was no exception. The day before leaving the capital, Yanyan came to see me. The slap mark on her face was clear and shocking. The reason was that after knowing how Yanyan tried to please me in every way, her grievances and complaints erupted, leading to a big argument, during which Yanyan, in a moment of agitation, slapped her. Following that was Yanyan's day-by-day neglect. Tears rolled from her eyes. Yanyan choked, with unprecedented humility. "I was wrong before, now I've tasted the bitterness. Miss Shin, I'll give up the position of the main wife to you. I won't compete with you anymore, please stay." I looked at her and suddenly found it somewhat amusing. "Did he send you as a mediator?" Caught by my words, Yanyan's expression turned desolate, nodding with a mix of bitterness and sourness, tears falling even more fiercely. I sighed. "The cheaper your affection, the more he tramples on it. Miss Su, you are the legitimate daughter of a duke, a girl many young men in the capital wish to marry. You shouldn't come to plead with me." Yanyan froze in place, then covered her face and wept bitterly. The day I left the capital, Yanyan came to see me. He was on horseback, his face unable to hide his excitement. He knelt before the emperor for a whole day and night, even willing to exchange his title for an imperial decree to marry me, a commoner, as his primary wife. Yanyan carefully handed the decree to me. He stubbornly looked at me, humble and hoarse. "Xixi, as long as you write your name, you will be my legitimate wife. Don't leave, okay?" I gently pushed it back. In that instant, everything in his eyes collapsed, darkening immediately. I calmly said, "Why don't you understand?" His face turned pale instantly, his lips trembling slightly. I paused and continued, "I don't like you anymore. I like the crabapple blossoms in south, the sour apricots of the northwest, the mare's milk wine beyond the border. There are too many things I like, no room for you." I turned my head and looked at the person behind him, Yanyan, who was crying her heart out. "But there are people who are filled with you. But you have let down one after another." Having said that, I signaled the coachman to depart. The carriage slowly moved away, and I lifted the curtain for a moment, seeing Yanyan still standing there. He understood. I would never turn back. This farewell might mean we will never meet again. Several years passed. Yanyan finally got her wish and became the prince's wife. The emperor, to ensure the continuation of the royal lineage, suggested the princes take concubines to bear children. Several princes refused, citing harmonious marital relationships. Only Yanyan personally chose 2 concubines for him. Obedient and charming, with clean family backgrounds. Yanyan was his youthful ideal love, someone who had genuinely cared for him, had gone to great lengths for him, competed for his affection, with eyes and heart full only of him. She was neither sad nor happy, welcomed the concubines into the residence, and was courteous. Yanyan originally thought Yanyan would use some tricks like before, to refuse him taking concubines. Yanyan angrily asked, "Aren't you jealous?" He was somewhat flustered. "As long as you say you don't want me to take concubines, I will refuse my father." Yanyan lowered her eyes, thought for a moment, and smiled lightly, calmly. "That would be heartbreaking." The emperor had many offspring, and to stand out and maintain the prestige of Prince Yi's residence, it was necessary to please those in power. In front of them, romantic love was as fleeting as clouds. Yanyan suddenly realized. What he lost was always one thing after another. "Even you don't love me anymore?" Many years later, I went to the capital again for business. Yanyan did not appear before me. Instead, it was Yanyan who specifically sought me out to reminisce. The autumn wind blew, lifting a corner of her garment, dignified and graceful, with a faint smile on her face, hiding steadiness and ambition. Now, she was the most favored among the emperor's many daughters-in-law. Intelligent and proper, doing things steadily. She said she found another path. Men are fickle, especially those in the royal family. She only sought to firmly hold the position of the prince's wife. To grasp power tightly, which was something others couldn't take away. And Xiaoyuni, in essence, was a romantic gentleman. Mediocre and indecisive in political affairs, with few achievements. Gradually, he was overshadowed by many princes. When others mentioned Prince Yi, they only thought of Princess Yi's wife. I picked up the teacup, took a sip, and we exchanged smiles.